This is Wild on 7th, your favorite Wild podcast.
Did you guys see this? This is unbelievable. What is that all about, Kinger?
Get in here for the real thing. Like, let's get weird.
Maybe I blacked out trying to figure out what was going on.
Doubt, worry, fear, because that's what we're breaking the mold on here.
Welcome to Wild on 7th, presented by Pilot Games. We're here until it's here.
And welcome back to Wild on 7th, your favorite Wild podcast. But today it's going to be your favorite Four Nations podcast because that's what we've got cooking. Again, this is all brought to you by our friends at Pilot Games. I know I will be out. We're recording this on Monday, enjoying a libation or two and some Pilot Games products as I watch Canada play Finland and the U.S. play Sweden with my fingers crossed that nobody gets hurt or nothing happens. But yeah, make sure that you do as well, because when you do, your community wins. Again, thanks to our friends at Pilot Games. Exciting start to the Four Nations tournament, and we've got more exciting news because we've got boots on the ground in Boston. Yes, that's John King from his hotel in Boston. How you doing, buddy?
I'm excited, man. I feel like Joe O'Donnell at the Super Bowl. This is what we've been waiting for. It's been as advertised, and I didn't know that I'd be seeing an exhibition game since the U.S. is already in the final, but it'll be great. Hear the anthem and take it all in.
It is a bummer that it feels like an exhibition game. I'm curious to see how the U.S. plays this one. They could drop it, but the other game, Canada-Finland, is anything but an exhibition game. What's the vibe like in the city there? Now, Montreal seemed like it was bananas. I know it's early in the day and it's not Thursday, it's Monday, but are you seeing red, white, and blue all over the streets?
I just went to get a Dunkin' Donuts coffee, medium hot, cream and sugar, and there was 30 Swedes on the way there, all in yellow and blue. So it's going to be electric because you forget everybody made these plans well before the bracket. So there's a big sports bar outside of TD Garden. I'm sure you know, Banners, the greatest bar. It's just going to be packed with people from all the different countries. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm excited to hear the anthem. And we do got to talk about this tournament though, because it is a hybrid. It's got a little bit of that 96 World Cup. We were talking about the over-under on fighting majors.
Yeah.
We took care of that in 9 seconds the other night. So it's been great. But I got a lot to get through, Carts, because I still got normal fan anxiety about Team USA that I'm going to walk you through some things.
It's hard. Ready. It's hard to know where to start with it because there's like a lot of meat on this bone. I think we have to start here and just talk about the tournament as a whole and like what it means. Then we can get into like the play and all of the other stuff. But I'm hearing this narrative that the NHL has absolutely crushed it with this in lieu of the All-Star game, which I do think that this tournament is in lieu of the All-Star game this year, but this isn't like a plan to have it every year. I think if you did this Four Nations every year, it wouldn't have the same impact that we're feeling right now, which is I think why there's parallels being drawn to that 96 World Cup of hockey, because it was like special. The players wanted to play. It meant something. I think you see that with this Four Nations tournament right now to these players. It means something. And I think to the U.S., it almost looks like it means more to the U.S. than it does anybody else right now. And do you sense and feel the same thing?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You want to know how obvious this was a good choice is the NBA players today, the day after the All-Star game, are talking about how they want to play U.S. against the world next year in the NBA All-Star game. 4.4 million people watch the U.S.-Canada. It does mean something. I think on the U.S. side, there's this generation of players that haven't had their shot on best. And the narrative that we're always the little brother to Canada, we're always hanging on the doorknob. Big brother put us there. There's a group of guys that want to say that that's not the case. We're right there with you. And so it's been intense. And don't kid yourself. Canada has more to say about this. The thing I was going to tell you, Karts, is so I went to the Olympics in Vancouver and I was looking back. The U.S. beat Canada 5-3 in the preliminary round, and I'm sure we were dancing on their grave, playing Freebird, and then you'll remember Crosby gets the golden goal 3-2. They end up taking home the gold medal. So this is far from over. We'll see if Canada makes it into the final, but it means something for everyone. Canada has to feel under attack. There's stuff going on with geopolitical, the anthems being booed. It's a pretty interesting little tournament at a very interesting time.
It is. But I think, too, just to reiterate this point, I don't think this tournament is as successful if they do it annually. Like, I like that it's rare, that the opportunity for the players is scarce. I think there's huge buy-in for that. And the timing works out because the NBA All-Star Game was right now, and you look at the other sports, and the one thing that this tournament has that no other best on best type of tournament has is the desire to play like this tournament has. You think of regular All-Star games, players, I think, enjoy their time there, but everything is set up for it to be a fun experience for them, where this tournament is set up for them to have to be their best and win. And I think you saw that. I think we can transition from that right into the start to the Canada-U.S. game. And the tournament has quickly become Canada versus U.S. You know, Sweden and Finland are there. They're competing. They've got good teams. But to me, it feels like it's really come down to Canada, U.S. And some of that might be because it's on North American soil and things like that. But the U.S. and the way they started with the Tkachuk brothers fighting, and I love Brady because after the game with Emily Kaplan, he was like, I think it all happened really organically. And then 30 seconds later, he goes, yeah, we had a group chat going on earlier in the day, and Matthew said he wanted to fight first, so I let him have that one. It's like, oh, I thought it happened organically. Like, this is premeditated. But I love the fact that it was premeditated because I think when you think of Canada, the one thing that they've always held to is like an element of toughness to them that maybe the States doesn't have. You think, it's U.S. college guys. It's full face masks until you're 22 years old. Like, you might have skilled players now, U.S., but you still don't hold the candle to us in terms of toughness. We've been fighting since we've been, 14 years old in the CHL. Well, it seems like at that moment, the Tkachuk brothers were like, hey, Canada, we're going to teach you, or we're going to illustrate to the world that we're not just good, skilled players, but we've taken the toughness torch too. And I do think that Canada played scared that first 20 minutes, and some of the guys on that roster maybe played scared for the duration of that game. Do you see something similar?
Yeah, we got to break this down. You think back to the days of Wendell Clark and Scott Stevens, and they always had that primarily Western Canadian toughness, right?
Yeah.
And the start of that game, I mean, I was out of my chair. It was electric. 3 fights in 9 seconds, right? So just a couple points. That group text, that's not a team group text, right? Keith Tkachuk is
look
on
at the
that.
Yeah.
And Bill Guerin might be on that. Like, if you think of that, I don't picture like Boldy and Faber and all those guys seeing that group. Like, that's like, I don't know. That's like Chelios and Keith and Matt and Brady on that group text. But just to do that, and then Brady squares off against Sam Bennett, and then JT Miller just goes into a scrum, and everybody at the place I was watching it was like, that's the wrong one. You grabbed the wrong guy. And he held on for dear life, fighting the big D-man. But it was, I'll never forget, Matthew in the box. He's got a bloody mouth. He's got blood all over his teeth. And he just opens the door for his brother and gives him a hug, and they're banging on the glass. I mean, I'll buy that 8x10 in some sports bar silent auction someday with the Tkachuk brothers sitting in the box, because that was just an electric start to a hockey game.
Well, and that's where I think Keith Tkachuk now has his fingerprints all over this, because those guys are good players, but they're marketers too, so to speak. Like, I think they understand all of it. And I also think that they don't do that if they don't have as good of game one that the two brothers had. Brady 2 goals, Matthew 2 goals. Like those guys probably felt okay, we've got a little bit of equity here. We've got this tournament. We can really make this tournament something, right? Like we can make a statement. And you're absolutely right. So I'm watching this broadcast and they flash back to Keith Tkachuk in the World Cup of Hockey fighting in 1996. And it's like, these guys, the Tkachuk brothers are geniuses. Like, is there a better image? Like, fast forward 25 years, they're going to be replaying highlights of those two guys, white mouth guards, out of the side of their mouth in the penalty box, like the Bash brothers smiling, loving every second of it, and going out there and just bleeding red, white, and blue. Like, that's the image from this tournament. Now, the U.S. has to finish the tournament, but that is the image coming from this tournament so far. That is the moment. That's been the statement.
You're absolutely right. And Keith, I think Keith was ejected out of 2 of the World Cup games back in '96, the championship and an earlier game. So, these guys are, they got a different gear. I was going to ask you, when Brady was fighting Bennett and he did the little hand, the handout, what's that? What is he doing? Is he checking his length on, or is that just a quirk, kind of? I love that. He was just kind of doing a little shadow box there. You've gotten into a fight famous fight right at the start of a game. What's that hand movement about?
I think some of it might be checking your length. Some of it might be like if you've ever been on camera or those bits where like, what do I do with my hands? Like you just need to do something with them because otherwise they just sit there and it doesn't feel right. So you're moving a little bit, jockeying. In a hockey fight, like your hold is probably the most important thing. And I think if you look at those fights too, like the hold matters. You got to get the right spot. So now, other than that, the Miller fight, I think the U.S. had the upper hand. They were the bigger, tougher guy. They should have won those fights. So in some ways, like I tip my cap to who was it, Hagel and Bennett, 2 guys from Canada that they don't really have that in their role. Maybe Bennett does a little bit, but they answered the bell, so to speak. But I think the hand positioning is just jockeying, testing things out, like getting your length right, little showmanship, a little intimidation, get the hand big and wide close to their face so that their last image is like maybe of your forefinger going through their nose or something like that. But it was good, man. It was just a good start to it.
I got a couple. Well, let's get into the Wild guys, okay? Because I think the Minnesota Wild could make the case that they're the 5th nation. And I was looking at our GDP. We got Boldy 3 points, Faber 2 points, Eck 2 points. Gus had a hot start in net. We got Brock Faber is a +4. I think Boldy's a +3. So what a showing. And tonight, even though, I don't know what it's going to mean tonight, but you've got all 5 Wild guys going tonight in the game, U.S. against Sweden, depending on if Gus plays or not. But, I mean, what a tournament for our boys. They've just been playing awesome. I think Faber's stock is trending up on the back end. He looks like he's working his way up the pairs. He was on the ice, at the end of the game. So they've just been great. Yeah.
I agree. And it started right off the bat. Like, I think Brodin scored the first goal for Sweden. He was good. Eriksson Ek. Now, one thing I like about Eriksson Ek, and there may be some juice coming from this tournament that helps the Wild. I'm looking at Ek's game. Let's call it over the last couple of months. We know he leads the league in face washes, but I don't think I've seen him receive that many face washes lately. And why that is, don't know. I feel like he's around the net. I feel like he's playing the same. We talked to Hines. He says that. But as I rack the brain, I can't recall that many times where he's just getting like thrown down in front of the net, battling, face wash. But all of a sudden, this 4 Nations tournament, he's right there. Like, it's happening again, and when he's at his best, he's scoring those 4-inch goals from the paint behind the goaltender, getting face washed. He did that in this tournament, and I think that's a good thing. I think transitioning to Boldy, he's looked like the Boldy that started the year. I think on his tip goal, was that the Finland game? I think it was. He wins a board battle, finishes a hit, wins a board battle, gets to the middle of the ice, right in like tipping position, and that's the one that Faber just lofts one towards the net, and Boldy makes a great tip. Like, he's playing power forward hockey, and it's working on the highest level. And then you go back to the game winner in the Canada game. Who's on the back check, forward three in great position as Sidney Crosby's trying to make a cross-ice pass? Like, who forces Crosby into an egregious turnover? Matt Boldy. Great one-touch play up to Dylan Larkin, and boom, it's in the back of the net, and Canada's spirit broken instantly in that one play. I think Boldy's sneaky, having a terrific tournament, playing a power forward style, but doing all of the right things. And it's got to help that Hines is on his bench, because Hines knows this guy, knows how to motivate him, knows like when he's good, what he does, and when he struggles, what he does. But Boldy's been terrific. Faber, I think he was rattled early. Like, it didn't work with he and Noah Hannafin, and whether that's nerves, chemistry, or something, it wasn't working. Good on the coaches, I think, from U.S. to switch that, and they found some type of comfort. He was playing with, what was it, Slavin in game 2, so that looked a lot better. And then the other guys, yeah, the Swedes and stuff too. Broads has been good in back. Like, just in general, the Wild players have had a terrific showing in this tournament.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I was going to ask you, I think it's got to be, I would love to talk to Boldy about his line mates, right? So he starts the first game, and he's with Tkachuk and Miller, Brady. Then he's been with Miller and maybe Larkin later on. And can you imagine when you're playing with these guys, like when you're on JT Miller's line, they might as well just hand you a bandana and be like, you're a Crip or a Blood. Good luck out there, son. Because, I mean, every scrum, you're just like, this is what we're doing? Okay. I mean, it's got, and it seems to have made him even play better, right? He's in this kind of intense environment. He's typically paired with someone that's going to run through a wall. Yeah, I hope we get a bump from all these guys coming out of Four Nations.
I think
it has to make you better.
And we hear Bill Guerin talk about the guys that bring you into the fight, and Marcus Foligno is one of those guys. Team USA seems like they have half a dozen or more, I'm going to bring you into the fight kind of guys. I think JT Miller's one. The Tkachuk brothers are certainly there. They just have a slew of guys that are willing to do it, and it matters. I think it matters. Like, you look at Canada. Did Canada have the emotional response to that game that the U.S. did? I don't think so.
Well, I don't even know if they have the lineup to do that. I mean, they have an amazing lineup, but if we want to play prison rules, when the clock isn't even running, right? I mean, that's a tough dance. I mean, it'll be very interesting if they play again to see what the response is, right? So Canada put Bennett in the lineup for that game, so they were anticipating something. But, if I was Canada, Sid Crosby doesn't fight very much, but when he does, he wins. If I'm Canada, I'm having somebody chuck mitts that you would never suspect, and I'm just saying, game on. If this is what we're doing, we're ready to do it, and the hockey will follow. But I think they're going to have some sort of response if they match up again.
And the biggest, a sneaky big moment, in my opinion, was McDavid kind of just roasting Charlie McAvoy. Like, McAvoy couldn't even turn fast enough, and that puck was in the back of his net. But then the next shift, McAvoy decleats Connor McDavid. And then the next shift after that, decleats him again. It's like, all right, you shot your shot, now I'm shooting mine. And Canada had zero response to that. Connor McDavid had zero response to that. Now, I do think McDavid was the best player on the ice for Canada, but in that moment, like, Canada needed like an emotional response to that play, and they didn't get it. And that's where it's like, all right, like, I look at Canada's roster, and the guys that they're leaning on, it's Doughty, it's Crosby, and it's some of these probably more established players. And do they have the young dog hunger that you see in the Tkachuk brothers right now? Like, do they have the willingness to go out there and like do things that they don't normally do to win this tournament? I don't know. It remains to be seen. Now, Canada's got a lot of pride, but they need a different type of response. And to your point, I agree. I don't think they have the roster makeup to do it. So then they're going to have to find a way to play a certain style of game that changes the way that the U.S. is playing. Now, can they do that? I'm not sure how, because the U.S. has defended so well. Like, what's Canada going to do? They're going to be like, all right, we're going to level up our skill. That's how we're going to combat, your guys' willingness and toughness and checking. I think Canada tried that, and it didn't work. It didn't work. Like Nathan McKinnon couldn't find open ice. Connor McDavid tried his butt off, found open ice one time, and then it was shut down the rest of the game. Like, I just don't know what response Canada can have.
Yeah, if I'm Cooper, Drew Doughty should have something to say. Brad Marchand. The thing I love about these tournaments, Carts, is when you have a vested interest, when you're rooting for your country and you're watching other countries try to beat your country, you really get a different appreciation for players. You really decide who you respect, because when you're in that type of battle, like, I couldn't be more impressed with Sidney Crosby. I know he made the mistake at the end of the game, but this guy is the alpha of alphas. He is so serious. He cares so much. You have to put a stake in his heart to beat him. And you really kind of start to see, even Dylan Larkin, didn't know as much about him. That guy is a gamer. And having Connor Hellebuck in net as a fan who has tons of anxiety about worrying about losing, I honestly don't even really pay attention when the puck's in our end. Because I'm like, if they may score, if McDavid goes backhand shelf through a pinhole, but generally we're all good with the best goalie in the world, Hellebuck, back there. I mean, the guy's unbelievable. He's got a .957 save percentage in essentially a Stanley Cup meets All-Star game format. And that has something to do with the D too, but you really can see who's made of stone when they're in these environments where it's all coming all at once. Who can handle it? It's such a great test.
So again, we're recording this on Monday. We're set to watch Canada play Finland and see who's going to play in the final game on Thursday against the United States. If you were to advise me on some place to maybe get some snacks or something for this tournament to watch on the couch or the TV tray, where would I go?
Well, I like that you mixed in a TV tray there. Thank you. Big TV tray guy. They should come back, I hope. I would go to the official grocer of the Minnesota Wild, Ryan. You probably know who that is because you also work for the Wild, but it's Cub. They're local. This is a week where, even tonight, swing in. They got beverages there as well. They, go get some food set up for your game on Monday night, on Thursday night. The Wild will be back in action on Saturday against Detroit. Get healthy snacks, get some chips, get some meat at the deli, some delicious cheese. They're local, they love sports, and we love Cub. And if you were going to go ahead, your turn.
Love it. Yeah, if I was going to construct something to be warm and comfortable, Kinger, I don't know, but you picked a real good time to go out of town. I don't know if you know that. Like,
it's cold here too, but I know it's brutal there.
It's Monday at 10 in the morning, and my kids' school got canceled for tomorrow because it's too cold already. That's how cold it is. And if you're concerned at all about your furnace and your furnace failing or it goes out, you might want to call our friends at Aquarius Home Services. Right now, they've got a great deal going where you can get up to 25% off on a new high-efficiency heating and cooling system, and that'll take care of the whole home. You can get a free estimate. You schedule that today. Stay warm all season long. AquariusHomeservices.com, earning the right to be recommended. All right, my man? So stay warm. Don't fight these drafts off by yourself. Leave it to the pros. Aquarius Home Services. Yeah, buddy.
Nice work. I Have you watched all of it, all the games? Have you been totally dialed in? Like, I've consumed every single minute of Four Nations content.
I have to. I think I missed a portion of the U.S. Finland game late, but other than that, I've seen it all.
Let's get into a couple weird things, right? So running back Freebird as the goal song, just awesome. Like, when you bring Leonard Skinner to a street fight, like, that's an unfair advantage, right?
We want to know who picked that. Who picked that, you think?
Well, Zeev Buyum, Wild player, eventually picked that for the World Juniors this year. And somebody on the U.S. team, we'll find out from the boys when they get home, had the presence of mind to be like, hey, let's just run it back. I mean, it's like kind of the least likely thing ever to just be like, let's use the goal song until somebody beats it. Let's keep running with Freebird. So, I mean, and then they got this video of them getting ready to go home to Boston, listening to Aerosmith Dream On, full blast. They're all singing the words, even though they're like 24 years old. Boston band from, Aerosmith's from Boston. I mean, it's just, I can't get enough. I mean, I really do feel like Joe O'Donnell. We have to win the thing, though. I can just feel it.
Yeah.
We're sitting here, we're feeling good. You had your sunglasses on, double collars popped, and then guess what? Thursday night, let's not spill the maple syrup. We have to finish the job. It would be very interesting if Canada has a misstep today, because as I understand it, they control their own destiny. So if they were to lose, then they're out. That'll be very interesting to see what happens this afternoon.
Yeah, what I'm curious to see in the Canada game is who they put in goal. Are they going to ride with Binnington? Because Binnington has given up a few softies. Now he's given up he's stopped a few tough ones too. Like, I wouldn't blame it on the goaltender at all. But I think back to Minnesota, the way Jake Gensel scores, I think demoralizes goaltenders. So he has like a sneaky 5-hole goal against Finland and against Binnington. Like, Binnington's body language after that Gensel goal went in was like he broke him. It was like, are you kidding me? And Canada gets the big goal, Connor McDavid, and then Jake Gensel comes down and slides like a greasy 5-hole shot through like a tiny little spot, like a goal scorer's goal. I'm curious how. Now, Jordan Binnington, we know this as Wild fans, having played against him in a playoff series. He has the ability to change the way his team plays, because he can be a third D-man on the breakout. And the U.S. has shown a willingness to just play simple hockey and put the puck behind the goal line and go to work. And Binnington's probably the only goalie on the roster that can help break that, because I do think that's a competitive advantage for the U.S. is like the simplicity of the game and the willingness for them to do what is right, go forecheck and do all that. But Binnington, like, you just lack the confidence in him in his ability to just like stop the puck that you innately have in like a Connor Hellebuck. Would you agree?
Yeah, but so their other goalie is Aiden Hill, it looks like. I mean, Canada has a goalie problem. I mean, at the core. I mean, that's a huge advantage, right? To have look at our goalies, right? I'd be interested to see if they play. I would run back Hellebuck tonight because they don't play till Thursday, but you might see Ottinger tonight. We've got all of our goalies are studs. So I is that a blink if they start Hill? Is that them blinking? Is it a message to the rest of the guys? It's not really Binnington's fault, but we're changing something, or do you just keep running Binnington?
I think Ferraro made a great point in the broadcast and I think it was him that said, like, in a short tournament, things get late fast. So if they don't have another opportunity to see if a different goaltender helps out, like if they play Binnington in this game, they play him in the final game. Like, that's it. He plays the entire tournament. I think you look at what the coaches have done, and it's different, but it's the same. Look, you look at the U.S. They started Hanif and Faber. Boom, switched it. Wasn't working. forward lines up front, like boom, switch it, wasn't working. They get to what they want, they see something they like, and then they kind of stick with it. They'll still change it a little bit and know that they have that ace in the hole if they want to go back to a certain line combo that they really liked. They have to do the same with the goaltender. Canada has to do that with their goaltender, I think. And Adin Hill just plays a different style. And then I think all the players on both rosters are good enough and smart enough to be able to adjust to a certain style and a change in style on the fly. Boom. Now, Adin Hill, I think, is probably more of like your traditional goaltender, and more so than Binnington. So I think they have to give him a look and be like, all right, D, this is the way the U.S. plays. Let's try to shut this down. We can defend this way. We'll make it easier on our goaltender. He's a little more consistent and reliable in this sense. And a lot of that is just speculation too, but I wouldn't be surprised if Canada makes a goaltender change. I think that things are getting late for them real quick, and they've got to see what they've got.
And you want to talk about a country that is anxious about this, right? The last two World Juniors, they've been hanging on this best on best card. It's been a long time on best since we've got them, probably really 96. So, and the thing that's so tough to defend against the U.S., that Matthews line is great with Gensel and Jack Hughes just flying around like vintage Patty Kane. And then you run back Boldy, Larkin, and JT. I mean, it's a handful. I've been super impressed with Matthews, how he plays the game, both offense and defense. Because he's almost like, you remember when Vanek was in college? He's one of those players that he doesn't look like he's exerting all that much effort, but he'll just pick a pocket of a guy in the offensive zone, keep the puck in. And Hughes has that kind of McDavid, McKinnon look where he's just fast and high skill. So best on best hockey. I agree with you. It shouldn't happen every year because it needs to be special, but we got to keep having it because it's just completely different.
Yeah, it's awesome. It really is. So the other thing I want to look at too is it's interesting, these tournaments, because like, you think of like a Dylan Larkin as a role player, and you're kind of like, hey, he's not supposed to be the guy scoring the big goal, but you forget that he is the guy that's supposed to score the big goals for Detroit. You know, like those guys.
He's their guy.
Yeah, those are the guys. You know, and you forget, and that's what's crazy about this tournament is anybody has the capability to be a game changer at any moment, and that's kind of exciting too. Like you look at Dylan Larkin, he probably could have had 2 or 3 goals in that Canada game, right? Like just playing like a hard-nosed kind of forward-checking game, but in some ways, this really reminds me of the first round of the playoffs. And if you've listened to the podcast in the past, we talk about how like that first round is so full of energy that it's hard for the skill guys to like show off their skill and talent because everybody's skating and checking at max capacity. And then round 2, 3, it starts to slow back down to like NHL hockey a little bit, like higher pace, but more what it looks like. And the skill guys start to put up points again. But in that first round, it's like your third and fourth line that help you advance to the second round because they've been grinding like that the entire year and they're good at it. So then when your team needs it, they come through because they're proficient at that style of game. I think what we're seeing in this Four Nations tournament too are the guys that have an element of grind to their game are more noticeable right now than the guys that don't have that element of grind to their game. And that goes for the other countries too. Like Mikko Rantanen struggled in the first game because I think he played perimeter in Finland's game. And then I think he was challenged. He goes into the second game against Sweden, and he's probably the best player on the ice because all of a sudden he was grinding, forecheck heavy, finishing his hits. But that's another element to this tournament that's flooring me. We're watching like $8 million men finish every single hit, you know, and they're standing up at the red line. There's no easy dump. Like every piece of ice is contested, and the game, it looks different, but it looks like intense playoff hockey. And
it's reputation, it's legacy. You're you're an analyst. So how about when Gretzky comes back after the first period, U.S. Finn, and he just says, terrible, terrible effort. And I mean, this is when you kind of cement your legacy for your. I mean, and it's a short tournament. You got to figure it out quick. I mean, and this U.S. team is not short on grit. We got Chris Kreider in the press box. There's not a better snot bubble guy than him in the entire league. And, he hasn't even played yet, right? So all down the lineup, Tkachuk, McAvoy, they're tough. They're built for, rubbing his race and trading paint. That's what the U.S. has in spades. Yeah. And I think it's helping them in this tournament.
Well, and I think that the U.S. guys have been better at their role. The role guys have been better at their role than the Canadian role guys. So Sorelli, Hagel, great players, but I don't know that they're as good at the role that they're being asked to play as Trocheck and JT Miller and Matt Boldy and Dylan Larkin. Like, are those guys capable of being that? We'll see, but I just think the role players for the U.S. right now are massive difference makers. The irony is they're not role players; they're damn good players.
Yeah, I mean Dylan's the guy in Detroit. He's got a lunch pail right now.
Speaking of lunch pail, I like this because we've got to get this in. Do you have any like dill dips? I know dill dips are popular here in Minnesota. Do you have any dips in your lunch pail as you get ready to set the base before you head to the pub for the games today?
As a matter of fact, I did bring some dill dip out here in my carry-on. I snuck it through security.
Send me a pic.
I'll send you a dip pic when I have a free moment. But yeah, if you're gonna get a dill dip, by the way, the best-selling dill dip in Minnesota, everybody's favorite in Minnesota is Jimmy's. This is a family-run company. Their grandfather started it. His name was Jimmy, and he started making salad dressing at a restaurant down in Stewartville, Minnesota. They call it Hooterville down there. It's expanded. The young bucks are running the place now. So when you're in a big grocery store like Cub and you got to make a choice and it's all this big salad, big dressing, conglomerates, you never know what they put in there. Look for Jimmy's. Look for One of Us. Look for their dill dip, their ranch dip. It's awesome. We love them. Don't you be messing with my dressing. Do you think the ice has been good at the Four Nations like your ODR? The water supply in Montreal, did it feel like it had what's the number 5 system? What do you call it?
What's the Connecticut K5?
K5, that's right, K5.
I do think the water is good. I also do think that we already did the Aquarius ad read, so I'll just nicely pivot to Wild Construction, our friends. No, they've constructed a spot where I'm very comfortable having people over to watch the game right now. If your house right now is experiencing any drafts, leaks, if you've got the ice in your windows or you need anything replaced there, they specialize in roof. They're not going to jump up right now. A little too dangerous, but they can get your exterior work done. Wildconstruction.com, look them up. Again, if you have one of those places in the Cross Lake, Brainerd area that the storms ripped through earlier this summer, you have up to a year to get those things looked at and replaced, and a lot of damage does take months to show up. So call Wild Construction. They've got people on the ground up there. As soon as the snow clears, they'll get up on your roof and check your siding, make sure that your spot's all good. And if need be, replacement, they'll help you out. Wildconstruction.com. Look them up.
Man, I'm straight in the press box on these ad reads. I'm struggling. I didn't even know. Okay, can I get your brain on 3 topics, kind of rapid fire?
Yeah.
Okay. You played the game. You won the cup, the whole deal. So how does the U.S. play this game tonight? By all accounts, it's an exhibition. It's their first time in the U.S. They're coming back. The anthem is going to be electric. Boston is no joke about their hockey. You're playing Sweden. I saw Sullivan in the post game said basically our job's not done. We got to keep the pedal down, right? You could go undefeated in the tournament potentially. It's, you got a little break. It's Monday to Thursday. How do you play this game tonight? Do you just treat it like an elimination game and leave it all on the ice? Or are we going to see, 4 or 5, 3 new players, new goalie, and it's a different tone? What do you expect?
Yeah, good question. I'm going to ask you real quick, what do you think is best case scenario outcome wise for the U.S. in this game against Sweden?
I don't want them to change anything. When I was a youth coach, you would be in some games when you would have to take your foot off the gas, playing someone. And I found it to really mess up a team. If I just would be like, Matthew might not play tonight. We'll get into the Bosch injury report. But to me, I put Hellebuck out there. We're in Boston. We haven't been on our home soil yet. And I would show the fans what world-class American hockey looks like. And I wouldn't overthink it. I just go out there and try to smoke Sweden. Pretend we have to win this game to get in and go. Because I think you can't let your foot off the gas. I don't think. I think you can seriously screw this up if you get cute.
Yeah. So you think the best case scenario for Team USA is like a 4-0, 5-0 win, running it out there like they finished against Canada?
Why not? Dominance. Let's show the world what we're made of. Let's make this our.
Yeah, that response surprises me a little bit because I thought maybe you were going to be anxious and be like, Karts, I think maybe they don't need to throw this game, but it might be best for them if if they have a piece of humble pie. Like if the Swedes come out and just like kind of shut them down, and then it kind of refocuses you and gives you something to like work on and to strive to be better at. Again, I'm comparing this to like a 7-game playoff series, and it's not, but it's similar in this sense. If they end up playing Canada or Finland, they've beat both of those teams. And the one thing when you watch playoff hockey, it's hard to sweep because it's punch, counter punch. You win game 1, we win game 2. They always talk about home ice means very little in playoff now. And I think that's why each team has the ability to make adjustments. So the U.S., they fed Canada their lunch, right? And Canada now has the opportunity to review the tape and make some changes. The U.S. doesn't have that ability right now. They're like, we're going to go roll it out there the same. But they're not going to be able to fight 3 times in the first 10 seconds. They're not going to be able to set that tone. That card was played. Now Canada has the ability, and they might hold the trump card, don't know what that trump card is, but the ability to make an adjustment. The U.S., I think, does too, but it just comes from a different place. Like, I think there's more urgency when you're Canada and you have to, or even Finland, and you have to make these adjustments, and those adjustments could be the difference in the big game. So for me, I kind of wouldn't mind it if the U.S. stumbles against Sweden and it becomes like a polarizing moment in the tournament where it's like, okay, like we were riding a high, we got fed a piece of humble pie, and then now we've got to get back to it because we're still in this championship game. And coach is right, we haven't won anything yet. And I think that lesson is more easily sent and received if they struggle a little bit versus Sweden. Now, what do I think they're going to do with the roster? I think it's different in each position. I think goaltenders are unique. I think you owe it to Connor Hellebuck at this point in time to say, Connor, what do you want? You want this game? Okay. You don't want nearly a week off between starts against Canada? Cool. Or 5 days, whatever it is. We'll give you this Monday game. Or do you want 1 period? Do you want 2 periods? You tell me what you want to be ready to go on Thursday. We'll get you that. So I think goaltender, that's what they should do, is let the goaltender dictate what he wants. I do think it is important for the other goaltenders to have a piece of this. Like if Ottinger's going to be a future U.S. goaltender, he should have some experience in this tournament other than sitting on the bench. So if you're organizationally looking at it, get him in there for a period. But I think it's Hellebuyck. If I was running this, Hellebuyck period, maybe 2, let the other guys get in there and kind of see how it goes. Up front, yeah, maybe we should get into the Boschlaw injury report. Right now it sounds like Matthew Tkachuk might be out for this game, but it didn't sound like he'll be sitting out for Thursday's game, or it didn't seem that serious. Like the post-game presser, everything looked good. So we'll see on that. I'll finish some more things. We'll revisit the Boschlaw injury report. Up front, I think they run out the same players. They do the same thing, and I don't think you need to make changes up front with the D or the forwards if you're the U.S. going into the Sweden game. I really don't. Just be interesting to see like how much urgency they play with.
Yeah, I think hopefully you'll see Kreider take Matthews' spot. I just think this is rock, paper, scissors, and I'd like to be the rock the whole tournament. And I hear you on, getting Ottinger some experience, but I don't know. I think it will be somewhat telling if Hellebuck's in net tonight. I think then the mentality is, come get us, which I would be in favor of. I know this is not my normal stance, but I'm just kind of like, assert your will, let's go. So the second question I wanted to ask you, Canada's response. Okay, so let's assume Canada wins this game this afternoon. How do you play the next time against the U.S. if you're Canada? Because you said something earlier. You said you can't fight 3 times in the next game. You can. I mean, I don't know what it's poker, right? I really don't know what will happen in the championship game. I wouldn't be opposed if I were Cooper and Sidney Crosby drops the glove in the opening faceoff in the championship game. By the way, he wins almost every fight he ever has. Doesn't have a lot. If I were Canada, I think that's a pretty interesting strategy going into the championship. How do you think they play? Makar was out as well, which we can talk about in the Bosch. That's a big thing. He missed that game. That's like Bobby Orr missing a game. So assuming he would be back, that's a different lineup.
Way different lineup. And everything changes when he's in there. Now, how do I think Canada counters that?
How would you play the championship?
I think so. They got to the U.S. got to Canada because they out physicaled them. I think that they intimidated Canada. I think Canada played scared at times, and probably the middle 6 of Canada's roster was unnoticeable to me. And I think some of that was because they just didn't have the competing desire. I think that. You could. Now there is a marquee guy that if you went out there and you're like, hey, fight the first draw. But I think Canada knows that that's a zero-sum game for them. They don't have. If you and I can pick this up, I think the coaches and everybody else can pick this up too. Canada doesn't have the roster to be able to out-muscle the U.S. squad. So it doesn't make sense to try to. I think what they've got to try to find a way to do is out-skate the U.S. and kind of out-skill them. And that can change a little bit. Like Nathan MacKinnon, he needs to earn the Nate dog, the dog and the Nate dog. Yeah, I think that he's going to have to be heavy on the forecheck, finishing his hits, flying around. Like Canada, the way they played in the Finland game, did you watch Canada-Finland? The first couple minutes, that's what Canada was not able to get to against the U.S., where Nate Dogg was flying around. He's super pumped to be playing with Sidney Crosby. And right now, I think on the Canadian roster, there is a little bit of that element to their game where they're all kind of like waiting for Sid to do it, waiting for McDavid to do it. It's their turn. It's their tournament. It's not mine. Opportunities there for Canada and these Canadian players to grab it. We'll see if they do. I do also, back to what we're talking about with the role players, their role players have to be better. Mark Stone has to be more of a role player. Brad Marchand has to be more of a rat, like what made him good. They're going to have to do all of those things, I think, in order to beat the U.S. if they do play in the championship game on Thursday. And then they're going to need some goaltending. And ultimately, I think that's it. But let's get to the final piece of the Boschland injury report, because this is the elephant in the room. If it is a tournament of best on best, the U.S. is without Quinn Hughes, but Canada is without quite a few of their D-men, and I think it showed. Like, you don't have Pietrangelo, you all of a sudden don't have Cale Makar, you don't have Shea Theodore, so you're down half of your best on best. That is a huge loss, and you saw them make inexperienced mistakes on line changes and D-zone coverage and different situations, like the Gensel goal was just bad coverage by a D-man and the forward was caught back and all these other things. I don't think those things happen if Canada has their top D-men. They don't have them, and that's the way things work. But getting Cale Makar back is going to be huge, and I think it changes the game for Canada in a very big way. He could be the lightning rod that changes all of their mentality going into their final couple games. So remains to be seen. But Canada right now, they are playing dinged up without Shea Theodore, with an ill Cale Makar, without Pietrangelo. Drew Doughty, I think he's been good, but he still he's not as fast or as mobile as he was 5, 6, 7 years ago. Like, it's different. They're missing these D that they thought they had coming into this tournament. And I think they had a game plan set up for these D and how they wanted to play, and it's had to change on the fly. And we'll see.
Doughty's got to start laying the body. I mean, that guy can get you. And he's had a lot of real big dust-ups with Matthew Tkachuk back when Matthew was on Calgary. They were absolute arch rivals. So it'll be interesting to see if he starts laying the body. My last thing in the slowest rapid fire ever, this long break, taking it back to the NHL. These guys have been off for a longer time than the All-Star game. I don't know if they were in Hawaii or Mexico or at the Sebastian Mana, the comedy show with you or whatever, but like, I'm just picturing everybody's been checked out in the entire NHL for like 12 days. I don't see guys on the treadmill or the elliptical. It's the dog days. It's been a long year. What do you think hockey looks like on Saturday? I mean, are these guys all walking around with gout? I mean, that's a long break at the time when they need it most. It takes a special person to be, grinding on the break to stay sharp. I'm just curious what we're going to be seeing.
Well, there's a couple theories there. Rest is a weapon. Rest is a weapon. So,
Okay.
You gotta twig your rest, which is take what is given. If rest is given to you at this moment, you gotta take it. So I don't necessarily know that grinding or being in terrific shape, like these guys are in such great shape, like how far out of shape you're gonna fall in 10 days. The guys have had long stretches from over the All-Star break in the past, because it's gone All-Star break right into their bye, so they have had up to 10 days off before. That's not new. I think you can also go back to their experience going into the bubble, where they just had no training camp, jumped right into preseason games and played NHL games. Like, these guys will come back and they'll be ready to play. What I'm probably more curious about is during All-Star breaks and bye weeks, when I would go away, I didn't watch the All-Star game. I wasn't tuned into what was going on, like, with the NHL around. It was like a full reset. I'm curious if these guys that are out now, are they watching their teammates? So are the Wild going to watch Eriksson Ek get face washed by Brock Faber tonight? Are they going to have the group chat going? I think this tournament is unique in that way too, where even guys are away and checked out. They're not fully checked out, because this is must-see TV. And if they're a fan of hockey, like, you have to watch this. So I think the guys will come back like with a little more energy and bump than they would after a normal all-star break, because it's not just pina coladas and sunshine. Like, it's rest and sunshine, some vitamin D, with a dose of some pretty sweet hockey in the middle of that too. So I actually think that Saturday's game against Detroit could be a great one.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think for the Four Nations too, Karts, we talked a lot about what would this tournament look like? Would it look like the World Cup, in 16, what it looked like the World Cup in 96. I don't think you've seen the last of the fighting majors in this tournament. I think the U.S. is running this is the circus coming to town. You might see something tonight. You'll probably see it in the championship game. I think they're actually going to dictate. I think this is completely different than anything we've seen before. They're going to go, hey, we're Motley Crue. We happen to be in Boston tonight. We'll be here on Thursday night too, and we're going to keep playing the hits. And I don't think it's going to model a normal tournament. I think it's going to be closest to the World Cup in 96. And I just think that's the case because you're playing at home. You want to get the crowd into it early. And I think some of our players, like you said, they almost understand their role as entertainers, which is pretty rare, right? So there's not, especially in hockey, there's not that many guys that go, hey, on the group text, this could be a really big deal if we do this.
Like that's
legacy. Not how hockey players think.
Yeah.
Like it's the opposite of that. It's like, don't stick out. Nothing's bigger than the game. And I think you have enough personalities on this team to be like, let's go.
That's a Bill Guerin.
See what happens.
That's a Bill Guerin. That's the Bill Guerin factor, don't you think? Like
totally.
Yeah.
Like, why are we going to Sweden? Well, we want to be a famous NHL franchise. That's why we're going to Sweden. He understands marketing too, and you saw the ratings. It's not that often that people who aren't hockey fans are talking about hockey. And 3 fights in 9 seconds will do that in a hurry. I'm sure Jimmy Fallon's making jokes about the World Cup of hockey, right? I mean, so there's enough young players and then that previous generation with Walt and Billy that know, people like firecrackers.
Yeah. Well, let's finish with this little segment quick before we let you go get a handful of gluten-free Sam Adams or whatever you're going to have at the bar and get ready for these games. But who do you think is going to end up being the tournament MVP? Let's place a bet. Tournament MVP.
Tournament MVP. It's Hellebuck. If it's not him, it's one of the Tkachuk brothers. If Matthew comes back and plays the championship game after being injured and it plays a big role in that, it's him. If he doesn't, it's Brady.
I like that.
I love Jake, Minnesota boy. But
Jake Gensel would be my pick. He's sneaky. I think he has that clutch gene that you don't talk about him, but he's hiding there, waiting to strike. And then all of a sudden, like at the end of the day, he's like the difference maker. So he's my dark horse for tournament MVP. So over under fighting majors the rest of the way. We'll set it at should we set it at 1 or 0.5?
Well, I hope that was on air when we talked about that because I had it over 1.5, so I feel good about that. I'm just telling you there will be another fight in this tournament.
I'll take the under on that. I'll say there won't be another one.
There will be, and I think there might even be more than you think. I don't think this is a normal animal. I think it's like, I don't know, man. This is bandanas and glam rock world tour. Black T-shirts with the sleeves cut off. I think they're going to keep playing their style of hockey.
If Canada or Finland wins this tournament and they have a player that's tournament MVP, who do you think it has to be for Canada to win?
It's going to be. I still think Sid has one more in the tank. I couldn't respect a player more, and they all defer to him. The problem Canada has right now is even McKinnon. He's his little brother, and I don't think McDavid can do it on his own. I think it would be Sid, and I think if it's Finland, it's Barkov.
Yeah, I think that's good. I've got McKinnon as my guy for Canada. McKinnon has to be Nate Dogg. If he's Nate Dogg, Canada has a chance to win this. If he's just Nathan McKinnon, I don't know that they have as good opportunity. But if he shows up, he battles, watch out. So he'd be my pick for Canada's team MVP if they win it. On the Finnish side, I'm going to go Rantanen. Watching Barkov, I appreciate Barkov so much more after watching these 2 Finnish games. I love this guy as a player all of a sudden. He's great, but I think in order for Finland to win, they need to score, and their best scorer is Rantanen, and he's the one guy that I think can be a complete difference maker on that team. So he has to be the tournament MVP if Finland finds a way to win this. So the only other one would be UC Saros. So if the Finnish goaltender could catch fire and be dynamite, he's the only other guy that I think has the possibility of becoming a tournament MVP. Any other prop bets that you like there that we should place before we let you go?
Well, I should give you an update. Billy has more views than Craig on YouTube, so I listened to the interviews. So Billy is in the lead over the owner right now in terms of his episode. So if anyone was betting on that, Mr. Guerin slid on by. He'll have to work that out with Craig probably if they had money on that.
Ooh. Like that.
I know
like
that's not
that.
good for any of us, probably. I don't know, who do we want to win there? It's got to be both of them. We cheer for both. I just wanted to finish. If you had a youth hockey update, really quick. I went to a high school hockey game. It might be the best $8 I ever spent. I saw Moorhead play Hill Murray.
Oh, you were
last
at that
game of the regular season. Carts. It was unbelievable. It was packed. They're hanging from the rafters, grease the poles like Philly. The most contrast and style you can ever see. So Hill plays 1,000 miles per hour, popcorn stand, sling the puck, over speed, tip shots, manic, so fast, so skilled. Moorhead they want to play half-court basketball, slow it down, seam passes, 50 passes before we shoot. It was awesome. And Moorhead was up 7-4. They lose 8-7 in overtime to Hill Murray. Number 1 against number 2. It was a filet mignon. I was just like, they're both so different, Carts. Like Hill Murray they won, and they should deserve all the credit. But I haven't seen a team like Moorhead in high school hockey that I can remember. I mean, the breakaway conversions. If you get a breakaway, Moorhead, they are scoring, and your goalie's going to sleep, and they're just going to push the puck in the empty net. Their power play is a work of art. Whatever Cullen's doing with these guys, it was so cool. I didn't have a horse in the game. I just went over there to watch a great high school hockey game, and it was legendary. ESPN Instant Classic. Awesome.
Yeah, dude, I have to give Hill Murray credit because Lechner seems to always find a way to keep his teams in these games. You go back to Hockey Day, White Bear Lake, Hill Murray getting outplayed, and then boom, next thing you know, in the third period, come back, they steal it from White Bear Lake on the road. Whatever it is, Hill Murray just kind of has that clutch gene, that ability to win, like come back, like they're never out of it. I think Lechner does a good job with that group, somehow conveying that message, and those guys buy in. But I read about this game. I think they had multiple 3-goal deficits that they overcame, and being down 7-4 going into the third period and winning it 8-7 in overtime. I can only imagine what it was like there. But it's that time of year. It's mid-February. I was out yesterday and I saw the section seating committee start to get ready. So the seating for who's going to play who was out, and a special time of year for high school hockey here in Minnesota. So excited to see how all those things shake out.
Well, this is great. Thanks for zooming me in here. I'm going over to Joe's on Newberry Street for some clam chowder, sit at the bar and watch Canada play Finland. So I'm going to get in a Boston state of mind, and I can't wait for the anthem tonight. It's going to be great.
Sounds good. Well, if you did listen to that Bill Guerin episode, make sure you don't make the mistake of ordering Manhattan clam chowder. If he sees you, he will disown you.
Honestly, don't even know what that is when he was talking about it. I don't even. Does that even exist? Like, what is that? I would never get that.
How do you?
No, this place.
How do you like your clam chowder? Like the thick, like gravy, or like a thinner, like soup base?
Well, I've been to the Warren Tavern, the oldest bar in Boston. They have great clam chowder. I did take that trip once, but I just think I like it in Boston. I mean, that's my easiest answer. That's all good. It's like getting sweet corn in July in Minnesota. Like, you're not going to go wrong in this town. So I would just say I like my chowder in Boston. Is that a good enough answer?
Yeah, I think it's chowder.
Chowder.
Cool, buddy. We'll have fun. Yeah, jealous of you. Enjoy the evening and the games today. And thanks for zooming in. We're here
Till it's here.